Hello everyone, so in this lecture video I'm going to be talking about the cardiovascular system. So cardiovascular basically means to say blood vessels on the heart. So this triad of the heart, the blood vessels and blood is very important in the function of blood, which is transportation, regulation, and obviously in this case protection. So even if you have good blood, if there's no way for you to convey your blood all over the body, then blood is useless. Right, so the interplay between those three things has to be quite precise. It has to be optimum in this case. So this is a surface and internal anatomy of the heart. And the only reason why I'm showing you this, there's actually a lot more parts than you need. This is actually going to be in your lab slides as well, is I just want you to understand how the heart operates. So the heart is a muscle. It's actually made up of cardiac muscle, as we already know. And this is actually the division between the left and right side here. This is the top portion called the base, and this is actually called the apex, because if you have a triangle, the wide portion is always the base and the pointy part is always the apex. The apex of the heart actually points slightly to the left. Okay, so the right side is primarily deoxygenated blood, and that's actually a terrible term. What actually it is actually oxygen poor. So right side of the heart is oxygen poor. Left side of the heart is actually oxygen rich. The reason why I never use the word deoxygenated and oxygenated is you never get rid of 100% of all of your oxygen. All right, there's actually a maximum. I think some people will actually say that you'll still have at least 30%, sometimes more, oxygen in blood, even in this case deoxygenated or oxygen poor blood. So how does this work? So you have vena cava. Vena cava, you have a superior vena cava that actually receives used oxygen poor blood from the upper extremities. Okay, that means to say your arms and actually your head. And then you actually have the inferior vena cava that actually receives, in this case, oxygen poor or used blood from the lower extremities. Okay, so the below the level of the heart. These two enter, in this case, the right atrium. Okay. So the right atrium is actually where both used blood, oxygen poor blood from the upper and lower extremities come into play. All right. So what happens is then they enter into the right ventricle through this valve called tricuspid valve. Okay, these are atrioventricular valve. Why? Because it's between the atrium and the ventricle. So when the ventricles contract, okay, and FYI, both ventricles contract at the same time. This blood then gets ejected into the pulmonary trunk, right? And they actually go to the lungs. That's why it's called pulmonary, where they get oxygenated, and then they return via left and right pulmonary veins. And guess where they go to? They go into the left atrium. From the left atrium, they go into the left ventricle by going through the bicuspid valve. And then when the left ventricle contracts, they get ejected through this called aortic semilunar valve. They go through this red big vessel called the aorta, and obviously the aortic arch. These three vessels supply blood to the arms and to the head, and then the downward portion, okay, the descending aorta, is actually where blood from all the way to the lower extremities and to the chest actually comes from. So FYI, folks, if you've ever been in surgery, if you're ever going to go into surgery or trauma, emergency medicine, whatever that may be, your blood vessels are not colored red and blue. All right, I'm going to tell you right now, everything looks red. And the last thing you want is memorizing. This is color-coded for you, but know that this is actually not the case in real life. All right, so just be cognizant of that thing. But anyway, so that's what that is. So very, very important again. The right side is oxygen poor blood, and the left side is oxygen rich blood, right? And the interface between them is actually the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk is where it exits the right ventricle, goes to the lungs, gets more oxygen, comes back to the pulmonary veins, enters the left ventricle, and then it actually gets ejected into the aorta to be distributed. Oxygen rich blood then gets distributed throughout the body in this case. Now, if you have valve problems, valvular problems, there's actually consequences for circulation. If you have a left-sided problem, right, which means that you cannot eject all of the blood. Okay, you cannot eject all of the blood here. What happens, folks, is when blood tries to go into FYI, once blood reaches the atrium, they basically almost passively enters the ventricle. Okay, gravity just takes over. FYI, if this happens, what happens is blood backs up, right? So it backs up into the left atrium, it backs up into your lungs, and you basically drown in your own blood. If you have a right-sided failure, what happens is it backs up into, in this case, the vena cava, and then what happens is you have edema. In this case, you actually have swelling in the joints, swelling especially in your lower legs. Right? There's another reason why that is the case, but know that. I really kind of talk about this circulation. FYI, there are three main vessels we're going to be talking about today: arteries, veins, and capillaries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. Do not memorize that arteries carry oxygen-rich blood, right? Because that is not always the case, right? Talk to a fetus, right? Talk to pulmonary circulation, and it's going to be the opposite, right? So arteries carry blood away from the heart, and any vessels, big vessels that carry blood towards the heart is called veins, and the interface or the connection between arteries and veins are actually called capillaries. So if we go again, so let's say this is the head, blood comes back to the head into the right atrium, it passes to the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, it goes past, right, into the pulmonary semilunar valve, into the lungs. They both come back into the left atrium, past the bicuspid valve towards the left ventricle, in which way they actually going to exit through the aortic pulmonary semilunar valve, aortic semilunar valve into the aorta. That is actually common circulatory pathway. Make sure that you can trace the movement of red blood cell or blood starting at the right side, ending into the aorta. Okay, I should be able to start anywhere and anywhere. And FYI, follow the numbers. That's actually a very, very important trick here. So arteries that carry blood away from the heart, veins carry blood towards the heart, capillaries, things between, like in this case, structures, blood vessels between arteries and veins. So this is in this case, a compare and contrast like between the structures of those three main vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries. I'm just going to talk about the capillary first because it's the easiest thing to do. And what is not shown here is there's actually three types of capillaries. You have continuous capillaries, you have fenestrated capillaries, and you actually have, in this case, sinusoidal capillaries. All right. And one of the things is continuous capillaries actually have no breaks. They actually have no gaps. Okay. And whereas fenestrated capillaries, they actually have like little gaps in between them. And then in this case, the other one in this case, right, actually has this sinusoidal capillaries actually have this big gaps between them. And they're specialists for different functions. For continuous capillaries, it's actually mostly for transfer, like in this case, oxygen, like the diffusion of gas, in this case, oxygen. Fenestrated capillaries is actually more in your kidneys, and that actually is for certain substances to actually go through your kidneys. And then in this case, sinusoidal capillaries is actually in your liver because blood actually exits the liver and actually gets mixed around in this case. But anyway, going back to this. If you look at this, you actually have three layers. You actually have the tunica interna or tunica intima, which is the innermost layer. It's predominantly epithelium. It's actually called endothelium. So it's epithelium, it's epithelial tissue. Then you have tunica media, which is predominantly muscle. And then you have tunica externa, which is again epithelium and connective tissue. Main thing here, the tunica media, the muscle layer in an artery, is way thicker than the tunica media of a vein. Okay, which means to say that the radius or the diameter of the opening, the inside opening in this case, the lumen, is way smaller in an artery than in a vein. Okay. Also shown here is a valve. Valve only appears in veins. Now, not all veins. There are no valves in your upper veins. Okay, veins that goes to your head has no valves whatsoever. All right. So, but basically, in this case, veins from your lower extremities and from your arms actually have valves. All right. Anything coming from your neck, coming down from your neck, has no valves. Okay. So that's one thing. The other thing is this thing called elastic lamina. Elastic lamina is elastic. In this case, elastic fibers. And the reason why this is the function of the artery is to actually transfer pressure. So when your heart beats, it creates a pressure wave. And the way that arteries distribute blood throughout your body is they transfer that pressure by this expansion, right? And this rebound motion of your actual arteries. And there's a lot of stress of that movement, and that's why they have an elastic lamina to prevent the shearing of these walls when this actual walls actually expand, all right, and contract. Okay, so there's actually an expansion and contraction of this vessel, so you need a little bit more of a elastic structure for you to actually withstand that much pressure. There's also this thing called vasa vasorum. Blood vessels also need their own blood supply and also need to have their blood supply drained. And so vasa vasorum is actually the blood vessels for, blood vessels for blood vessels. So you need oxygen, obviously. Arteries definitely need a lot of oxygen. Veins definitely need a lot of oxygen, as well as they need to be drained of those that used blood. And so that's what vasa vasorum actually does. Okay, single layer of epithelium, a simple epithelium. Again, valve for veins, wider lumen, no appreciable tunica media. Here it's the opposite. Okay, thick tunica media, elastic lamina, smaller lumen. And again, it's because of their function. This is actually for you to, like in this case, to help convey blood away from the heart in this case. All right. Now, by the time the blood reaches the capillary, there's no more pressure. The pressure that has been transferred by the arteries has been lost. So by the time they go here, it's actually 0 millimeters of mercury. There's no more pressure. So the return of blood via veins is actually a tricky proposition. So there's actually two mechanisms in which blood returns back to the heart via veins. And one of them is actually the skeletal muscle pump. I'm sorry, like the skeletal is actually blurred here. And all it is, this is predominantly in your arms and in your legs. So when muscles in your legs, so let's say this is the gastrocnemius muscle, which is the muscles in your calves. Okay, let's say that this is actually, in this case, the peroneal vein. Okay, we'll just get our fibular vein. All right. So what happens is when your leg muscles contract, they push on the blood that's already in the vein. And that's why veins are actually also called carrying vessels, because they actually have lots, because of the wide lumen, they actually carry a lot of blood. So when the leg muscles contract, valves only open one way. And in the terms of leg muscle, the lower valve, the distal valve actually closes, but the proximal valve actually opens, and that's how blood actually goes up to the heart. Obviously, when this relaxes, this valve then closes. That blood that was here now can no longer go back down. So this is called the skeletal muscle pump. So anytime you do activities, this is why you need to have your all elderly people be walking around. They need to be ambulated. It's to aid in return of the blood back to the heart. Okay. The other thing is called the respiratory pump. Okay. And the only way, I don't know why I'm always thinking about this, is always about the turkey baster thing, right? If you squeeze, if you always have to think about a turkey baster, or like a bulb, okay, like in this case, one of those irrigation bulbs, right? What happens is when you squeeze, right? When you squeeze on one end, water comes on the other, and when you release, it sucks up other things. That's actually what the respiratory pump is. There's actually a suction mechanism. So when you inspire, okay, when you inspire, what does inspiration mean? What happens, folks, is the volume, okay, increases here, and you actually have a decrease in intrathoracic pressure. And what happens is blood then flows up into the chest area. So as you can see, all of this pressure is exerted on the lower area. So now blood actually enters the thoracic cavity. When you expire, it's the opposite, right? So what happens now is blood goes two ways. It can actually go down, right? It can actually go down to the abdomen, but at the same time, it actually goes into the heart. Now, here's the deal. Why can't blood go back down? Well, there's valves. So that's one of the reasons why, if you want to think about it, not a lot of appreciable blood actually goes back here. But again, when you inspire, blood flows into the thoracic cavity. When you expire, blood flows into the heart. Okay? So very, very important here. So I hope that you understand the two mechanisms of returning blood to the heart. When you have failures of those two mechanisms of returning blood back to the heart, you have, in this case, defective veins, you don't exercise, you don't work out, you actually have respiratory problems, you have difficulty breathing. What happens is return of blood back to the heart is compromised, and that's actually when you have pulmonary edema, not pulmonary edema, but in this case, just pitting edema in the legs.